beautiful people of the internet. How are you guys doing today? Hopefully great, and welcome to Budget Builds, where we use zero Forma and achieve maximum efficiency. In today's video, we're taking a close look at Sevagoth, aka the true Reaper of Warframe. Now, this was a requested video by a subscriber. Their name is Psycho. Shout out to you and thank you so much for requesting this video. Now, before I continue with the video, let's talk merch. So guys, as I've stated in my previous video, I've just launched a merch store. If you guys would like to support me or the channel any further, go ahead and buy some merch. We are selling caps, hoodies, pants, and a whole bunch of extra stuff. If you guys are interested, follow the website link down in the description. And if you guys do buy some merch, make sure to tag my Instagram and the merch store's Instagram, and we'll definitely be doing some shoutouts. But before I continue with the video any further, please Spartan click the subscribe button for more Warframe videos, and let's do this. So you guys know the drill. Before I can tell you guys how to build Sevagoth, let's quickly go over all of his abilities. So for this video's sake, I'm going to be referring to Sevagoth as Zev because I don't feel like saying Sevagoth a billion times. I'll probably forget that, but I just want to put that out there. So with that being said, let's start off with our passive. So on death, become Sevagoth's shadow and fight to resurrect him by collecting the souls needed to rebuild his tombstone. This is a great passive because if you guys die, you have a second chance at letting yourself being alive. Now this passive works a lot like Inaros' one. The only difference is, instead of being stationary with Zev, what's going to happen is you'll go into your shadow and then you'll start collecting souls, and then you can slowly start rebuilding your own tombstone. Now once your tombstone has been fully rebuilt, you come back to life. Let's move on to his number one ability. Now before I continue with all of the other abilities, let me put something out there. All three of these abilities have one thing in common, and that is when you affect the enemy, or when you kill an enemy that is affected by these abilities, what's going to happen is you'll slowly start filling up this death well. Now what the death well is basically when you're playing as Zev, you'll see a meter at the bottom right. That is your death well. Now like I said previously, if you kill an enemy that's affected by either your number 1, your number 2 or your number 3 ability, you'll slowly start filling up that death well meter bar. Once that death bar or that death well meter bar is filled up, you can then use your Exalted shadow and start tearing enemies to shred. So keep that in mind. Now with that being said, let's move on to our number 1 ability, that being Reap. So Sevagoth's shadow flies outward, ravaging enemies in his path. Survivors are damaged by Death's harvest over time. The souls of the dead fill the death well. So in other words, you look at an enemy and you throw your shadow at them. If the enemies are low level, the shadow themselves will kill them instantly without you worrying about it too much, and your death well will slowly start increasing. However, if the enemies are a lot more tankier, what's going to happen is death well or the death's harvest is going to slowly start decaying away from their health. Now if you guys think that this enemy is too tanky when you threw your Reap at them, here is a bit of a tip. When it comes to using Reap, your goal is to make sure that the enemy is affected by Reap, and all you have to do is make sure that they die. You can kill them by using your weapon. If you do this, then you'll start receiving more towards your death well bar, so keep that in mind. Next we have ourselves Sow. Plant a death seed in nearby targets to drain their life force. Reap what has been shown to detonate affected enemies, dealing a percentage of their health as radical damage. The souls of the dead fill the death well. So in other words, you guys plant a ticking time bomb or TNT in the enemies. Once that TNT goes off, then you'll start getting more souls for your death well, and then you can fill up that bar. Next we have ourselves Gloom. Now when you guys are using the helmet system, Gloom is the only ability that you guys can take from Zev. And here's how it works. So summon a radial pulse wave that ensnares and slows down enemies, siphoning their life force for a death well. Allies within the wave steal health with each attack. So when you guys activate Gloom, you'll have this radius or this bubble, just like Valkyr's number 4. Now slowly this bubble is going to start expanding, making your range a lot greater. Now when the enemies are affected by this ability, you'll notice that your energy bar will slowly start to be draining. As you guys can see, with this current build, my drain is 0.19 to 0.38 seconds or whatever its units is. Now for every enemy that's in that circle, what's going to happen is you'll start taking away from their health. So think of it as Valkyr's Hysteria. So for every enemy that gets killed by you, you'll start stealing their life force, healing yourself. The same can be said with your allies. So in all, Gloom is another supportive ability for your allies. So let's say you want a supportive build for Zev, Gloom is the way for you. Just make sure that you've got a lot of range and got about a good amount of efficiency. And finally, moving on to the main show of this video, that being Exalted Shadow. When the death well fills, Sevagoth's shadow form is ready to be released. Tear the enemies asunder with the collection of melee focused abilities. Now, like I was saying before, when your death well or your death well meter is maxed out, what's going to happen is you'll then be able to use Exalted Shadow. This is another Exalted based ability. In other words, this is Sevagoth's signature based ability, and this mode right here has its own unique set of abilities. So I'll quickly go over that just now. Like I previously mentioned, Zev's Shadow has its own set of abilities. Let's quickly go over them. So on our number 1 spot of abilities for his Shadow, we have Embrace. Ghostly Hands pulls enemies into a flailing mass. So in other words, this ability works just like Mag's Greedy Pull. You pull the enemies towards you and allowing you to do quick melee attacks. This is a lazy person's ability, perfect for my needs because I don't feel like running around and start individually attacking enemies. I like to see rapid big numbers just like everybody else. On our number 2 spot, we have an ability called Consume. Dash through enemies and rip out their souls to heal shadows. So in other words, when you guys are playing as Zev's Shadow, you guys aren't invincible. You can definitely die and you can definitely take damage. But Consume, what it does is you can dash through enemies and allowing you to rip their health away from them. Basically, it triggers a lifesteal effect, allowing you to easily heal yourself. I think that's absolutely amazing because I think that going into a mission, especially when you take a lot of damage, you should always have some way of healing yourself. So yeah, dash through the enemies, you rip their life force out and you use that life force for your own health. On our number 3 spot, we have Death's Harvest. Inflict nearby enemies with a harrowing condition. So in other words, you just debuff all these enemies and you can kill them a lot quicker, make them a lot weaker. And finally, on the number 4 spot, we have Reunite. Sevagoth and his shadow become one. So you go back into your passive mode or your regular mode or your original mode before your shadow. In other words, you can go back into regular Sevagoth's mode. I don't exactly know how to explain that any further. When it comes to modding Sevagoth, there are 3 different items that we have to mod. The first one being the Warframe, the second one being the shadow itself, and finally the third one being the claws for the shadow. So let's start off with the Warframe first. So here is the build for Sevagoth, and as promised, here is the Zero Forma build. So let's start off with our mods. So this build is purely focused on Sevagoth's number 1 and his shadow form. I don't really focus too much on his number 2 because I don't really see myself using it too much, because Sevagoth's number 1 ability makes your life so much easier when it comes to filling up that death well meter. Remember, you have to max out that death well meter in order to access Sevagoth's shadow mode. So with that being said, let's start off with our aura. So we've got ourselves Growing Power for more power strength, Augur Secrets, Intensify and Power Drift for more power strength. The more power strength we have, the more damage Sevagoth's Exalted Shadow mode will deal. We've also got ourselves a Primed Continuity for more duration. The reason why we want more duration or neutral duration is because of Sevagoth's number 1. Now when you activate Sevagoth's number 1, that being Reap, what's going to happen is Sevagoth sends out his shadow towards all these enemies. Now the more duration you guys have, the longer the shadow will last, or the longer it will start roaming. You don't really need it because you can always just spam it. That's why we've got ourselves Streamline and Fleeting Expertise for more efficiency on our energy. That way we use up less energy and we can just easily refill our Well of Death meter. We've also got ourselves a Vitality for more health because we don't want to die as easily. Now we have here a Redirection, and that's entirely up to you guys. Here you've got some flexibility. One, you can either go with Redirection, that way you guys are a lot more tankier thanks to the shield gating mechanic. Another option that you guys have is you guys can go and equip Stretch, aka giving you a lot more range. Now why would you guys want to have more range on Sevagoth? It's because let's say that you guys want to have a supportive based build for Sevagoth. That ability called Gloom, it basically heals yourself and your allies. Remember, if your allies are within range, what's going to happen is any kill that they get while they're within your range, they'll start healing themselves. So if you guys want a more of a supportive build, feel free to add either stretch or auger or cord, or the one that gives you more range. Now, for the arcane department, before I continue with this part of the video, let me tell you guys, if you guys have arcanes, here's what you guys should put on. If you guys don't have arcanes, don't worry, this build will still work. Just make sure that you guys are running generic as your school tree, that way you guys can have continuous energy. But for our arcane department, I'm rolling around with arcane energize because I can easily replenish my energy, and guardian, that way I have more armor and I'm a lot more tankier. Now, me personally, I highly recommend energize, and the second arcane is up to you guys. You have a lot of flexibility when it comes to it. Moving on to Sevagoth's shadow. Remember, the shadow has its own set of abilities. So with that being said, let's start off with our aura. So we have ourselves steel charge, that way we have more melee damage. Remember, the shadow is a melee based entity, so by equipping steel charge, you're going to be giving yourself 60% additional melee damage. Next, we have ourselves cunning drift, auger reach, and stretch for more range. Now, the reason why you guys want more range is because of embrace. Remember, embrace allows you to pull all the enemies up close and personal, giving you the ability to do a series of quick melee attacks. So with more range, you're going to be increasing the reach of embrace. Next, we have ourselves auger secrets and intensify for more power strength. The reason why you want more power strength is because of consume. Now, what consume does is, let's say that you guys are playing as Sevagoth's shadow and you notice that your health is relatively low. What consume does is basically it will allow you to dash through all the enemies. Now, for every enemy that you guys dash, you'll start proccing a lifesteal effect. Now, thanks to these two power strength mods, by you adding more power strength, you're basically going to be making the power strength or the lifesteal effect a lot more stronger, allowing you to get your health back a lot more quicker and by using less dashes. Also allows you to save a lot more power. We've also got ourselves a prime continuity for more duration. Now, what this does is basically, the reason why you guys want more duration is because of Death's Harvest. Now, what Death's Harvest does is it basically just debuffs all the enemies, making them a lot more weaker, allowing you to kill them a lot quicker. Now, for obvious reasons, we've got ourselves a vitality for a bigger health pool, and finally we've got ourselves a streamline and fleeting expertise for more power efficiency. That way we can use less power and we can use all of Sevagoth Shadow's abilities without no restriction. Now, in the arcanes department, go and use yourself an arcane energize. If you guys want a bit more utility, go ahead and slap on either a fury or a strike. Arcane fury gives you more attack speed, gives you more damage output, once again making Sevagoth's shadow a lot more stronger. And you guys can have an arcane strike, that way your strikes themselves can have, or your melee attacks are a lot quicker. If you guys don't have any of these arcanes, don't worry, they're not important. However, I do highly recommend that you guys replace Arcane Strike with an Arcane Energize, because once again, you guys never know, you don't want to run out of energy or get caught with your pants down in any way, shape or form. And finally, here is the build for Sevagoth's Shadow Claws. So let's go over our mods. On our number 1 spot, we have Berserker for faster attack speed when we crit. We've also got ourselves a Sacrificial Steel. That way we can increase our critical chance all the way up to 106.4%. Next, we have ourselves Virulent Scourge and Vicious Frost for more viral, because viral is really strong at this point. Next, we have ourselves a Pressure Point for more base damage of 120%. And finally, we have ourselves Condition Overload for even more damage for every stays proc that hits the target. So take note at the bar at the bottom right. That bar is known as Deathwell. Now, like I've said previously, in order to take full control of Sevagoth's Shadow, you guys have to simply go and fill up that bar. The best way to fill up that bar is to either kill an enemy that is affected by either your number 1, your number 2, or your number 3 ability. But in my personal opinion, I feel like your number 1 ability is probably the most efficient way in order to max out this bar, simply because we have maximum efficiency and we can just easily spam any one of these abilities. Let me show you guys this. So here is our number 1 ability, and because I've got maximum efficiency, you can see Sevagoth doing this funny animation. But what he does is you push it, and as you guys can see, there is his ghost. Now for each target that ghost passes through, just make sure to kill that enemy with your weapon, and then you'll just easily collect their souls. So let me show you guys exactly what I mean. But first, let me go through all of the other abilities real quick. So remember when I mentioned to you guys that if you want more of a supportive build, you'll have to go and add more range? Well, here's the ability that I'm referring to. Now this ability is called Gloom, and as you guys can see, there is a radius around me that just slowly gets bigger. This is without any range abilities. Now like I said, any enemy, or let's say you guys kill an enemy within the circular radius, what's going to happen is you'll trigger a lifesteal effect. If a teammate does that, they'll also trigger a lifesteal effect. So that's what I mean by Gloom is a very good supportive build, or supportive ability. And then next, we've got Soul, which basically, plants TNT into these enemies, and then they'll explode. But like I said, your number one ability is a lot more efficient when it comes to filling up that bar. So let me show you guys. Let's first grab some energy right here, and then let's go and spawn some of these enemies. Let's spawn in some weaker enemies just so I can show you guys, how easy it is. So we want some level 30 heavy gunners, and we want a whole bunch of them. Well, okay, they're level 1. Hold on, let me just redo this. So we want our let's go with our regular heavy gunners, spawn about 30 of them, or hold on, yeah, let's spawn 20 of them because that is the maximum level, and then let's make them level 30. Alright, so let's quickly simulate them, and let me show you guys what I mean. So let's get to them. I also quite like the dashing animations, it's actually kind of cool. So here's what I mean. So let your shadow pass through them, and then start shooting them, and as you guys can see at the bottom right, that bar starts filling up. Now because we can spam this ability as much as we want, we don't really have to worry about running out of energy. So as you guys can see, when the glittering effect, or you'll see like this effect right at the bottom right, that your bar is full. That means you guys can now use your shadow. Now let me spawn in some more tanky enemies, that way we can have a much better demonstration. So we want to click here. Let's spawn in level 100, shall we? Because that's what everyone's really more concerned about. Can Sevagoth kill? Well guys, this is the true Reaper. In fact, this is what Necro should have been. So as you guys can see, my bar is full. Once that happens, then we can go into our shadow form. Now you just pull them in, and then you can just kill them like it's nothing. And as you guys can see, I just shred right through, because that's because of condition overload. Now if I want to regenerate health, just pull them and then push 2, and as you guys can see, I'm back at maximum health. Now if the enemies are weak enough, you'll just instantly eat through them when it comes to your dashing ability. So look, so pull them and then dash into them, and then if they're still not dead, just finish them off. And thanks to the viral procs and condition overload, we can easily just massacre groups of them. And that's also because of the slash procs. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful people of the internet, if you guys liked the video, or if it's genuinely helped you, make sure to leave a like, and remember to spot and kick the subscribe button for more Warframe videos. I'm gonna make like a banana and splits.